ready to get stranded. We're diving into Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe today.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
But trust me, there's more to this story than you might think.
There is a lot going on in this book.
We're working with the Oxford World Classics edition.
Great edition.
It's packed with insights.
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny how this book gets labeled a simple adventure tale.
Right.
But it's actually so much deeper than that.
It really is. Robinson Crusoe was revolutionary in its time.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It impacted literature in a huge way, even influencing how people thought about economics.
Oh,
I mean, this is a story that got even Jean-Jacques Rousseau talking.
Oh, okay.
And he was a serious thinker.
Rousseau debating Robinson Crusoe. What did he think? Did he love it, hate it?
He was a fan, actually.
Really?
Called it a complete treatise on natural education. But here's the kicker. Rousseau thought huge chunks of it were unnecessary.
Unnecessary. Okay, now I have to know, what did he think should have been left out of a good shipwreck story?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But you're right. There's something about a shipwreck tale that just grabs us. Isn't there?
Yeah.
It's like this primal fear of being utterly lost.
Right.
Yet also this strange hope of starting over, rebuilding from nothing.
Rebuilding from nothing. It makes you think about what you would bring, what you truly need to survive.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's talk about the man behind this story, Daniel Defoe.
Huh.
What kind of person dreams up a character like Robinson Crusoe?
Defoe himself was a bit of a rebel.
Okay.
Much like Crusoe, he
Yeah.
lived in a tumultuous period, early 18th century England, and wasn't afraid to stir the pot with his writing. He challenged the king on religious freedom, dabbled in risky business ventures, even landed in legal trouble a time or two.
So basically, he lived a life full of adventure even before writing about it.
Exactly. And get this, Defoe's own father moved the family to York, possibly to avoid religious persecution.
Interesting.
It directly mirrors Crusoe's strained relationship with his father, who warns him against a life at sea. It makes you wonder how much of Defoe's own life bled into the story.
It's like he took his own experiences and amplified them on this deserted island stage. Okay, so tell me about Crusoe himself. What's his deal?
From the outset, Crusoe is bursting with restless energy.
Okay.
He's impulsive, a bit reckless even, and craves adventure above all else. His desire for wealth and independence drives him to defy his father and pursue a life at sea, consequences be damned.
And Defoe doesn't hold back on the drama. I mean, Crusoe's first encounter with a storm at sea is terrifying.
It's visceral.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine this. You're young and experienced, and suddenly the ship is tossed about like a toy.
I can't even imagine.
Defoe writes that, quote, wind began to blow and the waves to rise in a most frightful manner.
Oh, wow.
Even the experienced sailors are gripped by fear, and Crusoe is overwhelmed with terror and amazement.
I bet.
It's a brutal introduction to the unforgiving power of nature.
You get the sense he immediately regrets not listening to his dad.
Absolutely. Defoe tells us that Crusoe is struck with guilt. His conscience reproached him for disobeying his father and God.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. This cycle of bad decisions and near-death escapes,
Yeah.
it becomes a pattern throughout the book.
It's like he gets shipwrecked, rescued, makes a fortune, and then risks it all again.
Exactly.
Talk about not learning your lesson.
Right.
Rousseau really wasn't a fan of this whole up and down trajectory.
No, he wasn't.
It makes you wonder, is Defoe trying to tell us something here? Is it just bad luck? Or is there a deeper meaning to all these misadventures?
That's a great question. What do you think?
I don't know. It's just so interesting
Yeah.
that it keeps happening.
Is Defoe highlighting the pitfalls of ambition,
Right.
the cyclical nature of fate, or something else entirely?
It's just so fascinating.
It's almost like Crusoe needs to be stripped bare, both literally and metaphorically, before he can truly appreciate, well, anything.
That's a good point.
And speaking of being stripped bare, let's talk about his time as a slave in Sallee.
Oh, man, that's heavy stuff. After the second shipwreck, he ends up a captive in Sallee, right? A port city in Morocco.
Yes, and it's a pivotal moment in the story.
Okay.
Not just for the plot, but because it gives us this early glimpse into Crusoe's complex and frankly uncomfortable views on slavery.
Because he sees himself as a victim.
He sees himself as a victim of the cruel Moors.
Right.
Yet later he justifies enslaving Friday.
It's like Defoe is holding up a mirror to the hypocrisy of the time. Even as Crusoe rails against his own captivity, he participates in a system that enslaves others.
Precisely. It's a stark reminder that even as we might root for Crusoe's survival, we can't ignore the ethical complexities of his world.
Right.
And by extension, our own.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's hard to reconcile today. It adds this whole other layer to the story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about surviving the elements, but about confronting these difficult truths about human nature. But even after escaping slavery, he still manages to strike it rich again.
It almost seems like Defoe is toying with us at this point.
Right.
Crusoe escapes, ends up in Brazil, and stumbles into success as a planter. You'd think he would have learned to appreciate a good thing, but...
But those get-rich-quick schemes are too tempting to resist.
Exactly. He can't help himself.
Nope.
He gets involved in a trading venture to Guinea, which, if you're paying attention to the historical context, implicates him in the slave trade once again.
Yeah, not a good look, Crusoe. And then, of course, another shipwreck.
Another one.
Seriously?
It does seem excessive even for Defoe.
It really does.
But this time, it's for real. This shipwreck strands him on the island where he'll spend the next 28 years of his life.
Alone, or so he thinks.
Alone with nothing but his wits and a few salvaged supplies. And that, my friend, is where we'll pick up next time on the deep dive. So we left off with Crusoe shipwrecked and stranded,
Hello.
facing a future totally unknown.
Yeah.
It's that classic castaway scenario. But what's fascinating is how Defoe uses this setup to explore not just physical survival, but the resilience of the human spirit.
Okay. But he's starting with practically nothing right.
Yeah.
How does he even begin to make this island livable?
He manages to salvage some essential tools and materials from the wreck.
Yeah.
Things like nails, spikes, even a grindstone.
Okay.
Which proves vital later on.
Oh, yeah.
It's a reminder that even in really dire circumstances, resourcefulness can be the difference between life and death.
Exactly.
Defoe really dives into the nitty-gritty of survival here, detailing Crusoe's methods for building shelter, finding food and water, protecting himself from the elements.
It's like watching a one-man episode of Survivor.
Right.
But with quill pens and breeches instead of camera crews.
Exactly. And with far less complaining about being voted off the island.
Right. Exactly.
But what's remarkable is how Crusoe's ingenuity goes beyond just like the purely practical.
Okay.
He establishes routines.
Okay.
Creates a makeshift calendar by carving notches into a post.
Wow.
Remember, this is long before smartphones with calendar apps.
Right.
And even details the painstaking process of building furniture from scratch.
Wait, so he's not just surviving, he's actually building a life for himself.
Yes.
Alone on this island.
He is. And that's where the psychological impact of solitude really comes into play.
Yeah.
Defoe doesn't shy away from the mental and emotional toll this isolation takes on Crusoe.
Like that.
He battles loneliness, crippling fear, even despair. Remember that detail we talked about earlier? The earthquake?
How could I forget? The ground starts shaking just when he's carved out a little piece of stability.
And it's not just the physical upheaval.
Right.
It's that stark realization of his utter aloneness.
Right.
The earthquake triggers a profound terror in him.
Wow.
One that lingers long after the tremors have subsided.
It makes you wonder what's scarier, the objective dangers of the island.
Right.
Or the monsters we create in our own minds when we're utterly alone.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But then, just when you think Crusoe has mastered his environment,
Right.
tamed the island both physically and mentally,
Yeah.
he makes a discovery that changes everything.
Uh-oh.
He realizes he's not as alone as he thought.
And this is where we get to the cannibals, right?
Exactly. He finds evidence of their gruesome feasts.
Oh, no.
Remember the shore spread with skulls, hands, feet, and other bones of humane bodies?
Yeah, that's gruesome.
It's a chilling discovery that shatters his illusion of safety and throws him into a moral tailspin.
That's got to do a number on your head, going from fearing wild animals to realizing there are other humans out there.
Right.
And they're will eating each other.
And don't forget about the footprint in the sand.
Oh, yeah.
That happens long before he actually encounters the cannibals face to face.
Right.
He finds a single footprint on the beach, and it haunts him.
Really?
Defoe masterfully builds the suspense, leaving us to wonder, is it another survivor?
Right.
A figment of Crusoe's imagination, or something far more sinister?
Okay, now that you mention that, that footprint is kind of creepy.
It is.
It's like this primal symbol of the unknown. A reminder that we're never truly in control no matter how much we build or how many goats we tame.
Exactly. And that perfectly encapsulates the unsettling atmosphere Defoe creates.
Yeah.
But eventually the suspense breaks.
Yeah.
And Crusoe comes face to face with cannibals.
So what happens? Does he run? Does he fight? Does he offer them tea and biscuits?
He wrestles with what to do.
I bet.
On one hand, he's horrified by their inhumane feastings, seeing them as savage wretches.
All right.
But remember, he's profiting from the slave trade back in Brazil.
That's right.
This encounter forces him and us, the readers, to confront the hypocrisy inherent in judging another culture's practices while benefiting from a system equally brutal.
Whoa, Defoe is prompting us to ask ourselves what makes us civilized.
Yeah.
Is it our tools, our clothes, our arbitrary moral codes?
Right.
Or is there something inherently hypocritical about claiming moral superiority while exploiting others?
Exactly. And it's this kind of layered complexity that elevates Robinson Crusoe beyond a simple adventure tale.
Right.
Ultimately, Crusoe decides to intervene, rescuing one of their captives.
And that captive is Friday.
Right. And this is where we enter one of the most debated relationships in literature.
Really?
On the surface, it seems straightforward.
Yeah.
Crusoe, the benevolent rescuer, and Friday, the grateful servant.
Right.
Crusoe teaches him English, introduces him to Christianity, even gives him clothes and a European name.
Okay.
But as we dig deeper, we see that it's far more complicated than that. There's this undeniable power imbalance.
Right.
A paternalistic, even colonial dynamic at play.
Precisely. Crusoe sees Friday as a project, someone to mold in his image.
Yes.
And Friday, for a time, appears to embrace this role. But Defoe also gives us glimpses of Friday's own intelligence.
Right.
His longing for his homeland, even his fear of being killed if he returns.
Yeah.
Which contrasts sharply with Crusoe's greatest fear, being eaten by cannibals.
Right.
It highlights how their worldviews, their fears, are shaped by vastly different cultural experiences.
Exactly. It makes us think about the complexities of cultural exchange.
Yep.
The blurred lines between education and assimilation.
Right.
And how even the best intentions can be intertwined with power dynamics. But their relationship, complex as it is, takes a backseat when a chance for escape finally presents itself to Crusoe.
Another shipwreck. A passing hot air balloon.
This time, it's an English ship.
Okay.
But there's a twist.
Oh.
It's not a rescue mission, but a crew of mutineers who have overthrown their captain.
Oh, man. Talk about out of the frying pan into the fire.
Right.
What does Crusoe do?
He's learned a thing or two about risk and consequences over the years.
Okay.
He doesn't blindly jump into action, but assesses the situation, weighing his options. He doesn't want to trade one form of captivity for another.
So what does he do?
He decides to help the captain.
Okay.
He and Friday team up with him, stage a daring rescue. And finally, after decades of solitude and unexpected encounters, Crusoe is free to leave the island.
It's the moment we've all been waiting for.
Right.
Or is it? Because something tells me Defoe isn't done with us yet.
You know, Crusoe, he can't stay put for long.
Oh, boy.
And that's where we'll pick up next time on the deep dive.
Last time on the deep dive, Crusoe finally escaped the island.
Right. You'd think after all that he'd be ready for...
Hey, just chill out.
A quiet life back in England, exactly.
Yeah, put his feet up.
But remember, this is Crusoe.
Oh, yeah?
We're talking about a man who seems constitutionally averse to peace.
He can't sit still.
He can't, even after escaping, even on his journey back to civilization.
Right.
It's fraught with danger.
Wait, now, what happened?
Defoe throws more at him, this time a harrowing encounter with a pack of wolves in the Pyrenees Mountains.
Hold on, wolves? I thought we were done with the whole deadly animal encounter part of this story.
Right, you would think that, wouldn't you? But no, Defoe really wants to emphasize...
He can't catch a break.
He really can't, that the natural world is a threat.
Yeah?
Even as he returns to human society.
So how does he escape? Another one of his little tricks.
It's a combination, really. He and his companions use gunfire.
Okay.
And a lot of strategic shouting apparently does the trick.
Who knew you could yell at wolves? You learn something new every day.
You really do.
But he makes it back to England, right? Safe and sound after all this.
He does, finally back in England. But even then, after shipwrecks, slavery, cannibals, and now hundreds of wolves. Hundreds. Defoe describes it as this roiling mass of teeth and fur.
I don't even want to picture that.
But yeah, even after all that, Crusoe still can't settle down.
He goes on another adventure.
He just can't help himself.
This guy, it's almost like he's addicted to the chaos of it all.
It really is, isn't it?
Mm.
Which might be a key to understanding not just Crusoe, but Defoe himself.
What do you mean?
Well, remember, Defoe was known for his own restless spirit.
Oh, that's right. Always in the middle of things.
Exactly. Always writing, always involved in politics.
Causing trouble.
Maybe in Crusoe's inability to stay put, we see a little of Defoe's own drive.
Interesting. So it's deeper than just adventure.
Yeah, it's this need to always be in motion.
Always pushing the limits.
Exactly. But it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
at what point does this desire for more, this need for experience,
Become its own kind of trap.
become its own kind of captivity?
Yeah. It's like that saying, wherever you go, there you are.
Ooh, I like that.
Maybe true freedom isn't about running away from things,
Yeah.
but turning to face them.
Maybe that's the point of Robinson Crusoe.
Not just surviving an island, but surviving yourself.
And figuring out what drives us. What are we willing to risk? What are we really searching for?
It's definitely made me think about the book in a whole new way.
It's got so many layers.
Speaking of which, what about that footprint?
Ah, yes, the footprint in the sand.
We never figured that out.
I love that about the book. It's never explained.
So frustrating, but also kind of brilliant.
Exactly. It makes you think about it long after you've finished.
So what do you think it means? Other survivors? Crusoe going crazy? Or is Defoe saying we're never really alone?
I think it can be all those things, the limits of what we can know, stuff beyond our control, that even in this meticulously crafted story,
Which it is.
there are still mysteries.
I guess we all have our own footprints in the sand.
We do, and maybe that's the real message.
To keep exploring, to keep asking questions, in books and in life.
Beautifully said. Who knows, maybe we'll find ourselves drawn back to this island someday.
And discover something new? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.